Hey, it should work now, I hope. Can you see if it's working?
What we are supposed to see?
Me and Google Hangouts.
Maybe just I'm pretty sure you have to switch the scene in the
Yeah,
OBS.
I did now, so you can have the delay with it.
Okay, there's another problem here.
No.
There's two links.
Yeah.
There's two different links.
Okay. Okay. Can you share the new link? Maybe.
Can you turn on your audio?
Live.
Yeah, I did now, so you can
I can hear myself.
There's another problem here. It's the super flat.
Okay. So is it working? Can you hear us, guys?
You're creating the look right now.
Okay, I believe it's working. Cool. Are we doing this thing?
Okay.
Nick, Wojtek? Hello?
Okay, I believe. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, I believe it's working. Okay, Wojtek, Nick, are you there? Guys?
Can you talk to us in chat?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Give us a second, we have some technical difficulties that we are trying to pass by. Wait. Okay. Nick, you can post the URL to the new stream on the chat, and I think it should be fine. There is no other way, I believe.
Sure, we'll do that. You can go ahead and start.
Cool. So, hi guys, I'm Daniel, and I work in Phase as a content community manager, and together I have with me Wojtek, our designer, and our CEO, Nick. Nick, you can post the URL to I can hear myself on the chat, and I think it should be fine. Okay. Wait, there is no. That's my way because I have the recording open.
Sure, we'll do that. You can.
Okay, it's working. Once again, Wojtek, Nick, guys, great to have you here. Great to have you here.
Hello.
Cool. So I'm in Berlin right now. Wojtek and Nick are based in Taipei in our office, actually, where we usually work and when we develop the tool itself. Me and Vlad are based in Berlin, and actually I'm in my apartment now, not in our office. But yeah, so we have this live stream today because we want to give you a sneak peek at Phase version 1, how it's going to work like, and what you are able to do with it. So yeah, let me just give you a sneak peek of what's possible with Phase version 1, and those guys will be able to answer all of your questions and be here with me. Cool. Okay, so let's start with those demos that I will be showing to you are basically the same thing that you may have seen already from Berlin or London. So I will show you how basic is what are you able to do with Face beta version 1. Just let it load a bit because I'm streaming, I'm using Face and using Google Hangouts at the same time. So yeah, first thing are states. So what states basically let you do is to create different states of the same element, and you can have as many of them as you want, and and basically all of the properties that you have on the right side can be used as a property of a different state too. So we'll create a new state and we will change its position. But you can also change things like rotation, layer, you can add different effects, you can add fills, borders, all of that you have on the panel on the right side. So let's assign different state for this element too. Okay. And now I'm going to set up an action. So actions let you trigger different things within your project. And I'm going to set up an action that will let me change states of those elements that I set up before. So I will set this button in the middle as a selector, so it will serve as a trigger for the action to happen. And the event itself will trigger whenever we hover over it. So let me select hover. And now we can assign this action to different elements that already have different states assigned. So we'll add this element. Okay. And it will toggle between state default and state 1. And here on the timeline, you can basically set delay and stretch it to longer time periods. And we'll assign the same action to this circle. Okay. And we'll toggle between different states. Okay, now we can preview this action. Yeah, it's a little bit slow because of the performance usage of my Mac. But yeah, whenever I hover over this element, it will start moving those other elements. And I can also assign totally different action to the same button. So let's say I want to assign a click action on this button. So I have to just create a new action. Select this button as a selector again. And now we'll have an action on click. Okay, so I want to set up this action the way that all the mountains will move down. Okay, so we have to assign states to each of those mountains. Okay, move it down. And same for the last layer. So we're just adding a new state and moving it down, and we have different states of these elements. So we can now assign those changes to our sequence. So each of those layers would toggle between state default and state 1. Same for this. And same for this. Okay. Okay, toggle. Cool. So now we can preview this action and see if it's working. So the first action is still working. We can still hover over this button and those circles will start moving. And when we press on this button, the second action will be triggered too. So all of it, it's still working, and we can have both of them at the same time. Cool. So now let's jump to the other demo that you may be already familiar with if you've seen the Berlin event or London event, the one with the lock. So guys, if you have anything to add, you can say something. They don't hear me, I think. Cool. So now let's add. Now let's open different demo. Okay. So what I want to do with this in this demo is to set up this lock to open and close only on certain combination. And it's actually very easy to do with face. So let me just scroll a little bit. And yeah, we have to add state to each of those switches. So we're just selecting them, adding state, and moving up. And we'll do the same to next two. Okay. And same for the last one. Okay, now we'll assign actions to each of those switches. So we just have to create new action to each of them. And yeah, we're selecting switch as in selector. Then the action will happen on click. So, sorry. Okay, so whenever we click on this switch, it will change its state to state 1 and state default depending on its position. And we'll assign the same action to other two buttons, other two switches. So now let's just select it. Okay, we'll set up a new action. Click. And we'll select it as selector. Okay. We can create a new action and assign it to the last switch. Okay. Click. I'm not reading comments right now, but I will be looking through them after finishing the demo. So after the demo, we'll be able to ask questions. Okay. So now we can preview this action if everything is working as it should.
Hey Daniel, can you give people an explanation of what you're actually making?
I believe I did. What do you mean?
So you can't see the comments. The comments are that people don't really understand what it is that you're making. They can see you going step by step, but they don't know what you're trying to do.
Can they hear me though?
Yeah, people hear you, but we just needed a description of what you're trying to do.
Okay, so what I want to do in general in this demo is to set up this lock to close and open in certain combination, like I said before. So now I'm going to set up those. I set up those switches to be able to move them. So whenever I click on each of them, it will start moving. So now I will assign action to this button to be able to close and open the lock. Okay, so I have to just click on it and create a new state. Move it down and assign action to this button. Okay, now we are adding this button as a selector. So whenever we click on it, it will trigger the action. So it will move this lock from open state to closed state, or state or close to open, depending on its position. Okay, so now we can preview this action. So right now it's working on every possible combination of this lock. But let's say I want it to close and open only when the first and last switch are up. So in order to that, we'll set up a condition. So conditions basically let you create different different combination, different conditions that have to be set in order for this action to happen. So I want to have the first switch in state 1. So I have to add condition for switch 1. And it will have to have style state 1. Okay, now we duplicate it. Okay. Okay, let me scroll a bit. Okay, now we have to remove this one at switch 1 and replace it with switch number 2. Okay. We are adding it as a selector, and it will have to have state default, so it means it will be down. And now let's duplicate it once again and remove this one. Set it for switch number 3. Okay. And switch number 3 will have to have state 1, so it means it will be up. Now we can preview this action. So before it worked on every possible combination of switches. Now it's not going to work like that. So it's not going also to work like that. We have to set up the right combination in order to this action to happen. And as you may see, it's working only in this combination. And we can take one step further. So we can also create a trigger, which for now only lets you switch between different screens, but you will be also able to assign different actions to it in the future. So I will just add a screen, go to screen success, and as you may see on the timeline, it now shows that the trigger was added, and you can just preview it and add different timestamp, etc. Okay, so now we can preview this action. So this trigger is only going to trigger when the conditions is right. So it's not going to open right now. It's only going to work only with the right combination of those switches. So it closed and it switched to the other screen. We can go back to the first screen here. So go to condition screen. Now it's going to open and switch to the other screen. So yeah, that's how Face is working now with this beta version. It's a very early version, but we want to give some of you a sneak peek how it's going to work like and perform in the future. And we already want to get as much of your feedback as possible to be able to work on it and make it fully usable as soon as possible. Cool. I'm waiting for those guys to know that I ended with the demo. Hey.
Hey, we know.
Okay.
We know.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so there were a couple questions in the chat that we can also answer now. We already answered in text, but we will answer again. So what is Phase version 1 all about? Is interactions. So we don't do editing directly in the tool yet. You create your design and then you can import those designs into Phase and really, really quickly make complex, dynamic, conditional interactions. And we're going to be able to take this to the point where we can do user testing on those right out of Phase. You want to try the difference with other prototyping tools?
There are many differences, but maybe you'll be able to spot the main difference if you just look at the example that Daniel showed you. Because first, way more different approach how you create interactions. Everything happens in state, so you don't have to duplicate any screens. You don't have to create duplicated elements. Each element holds different states. The first difference. Also, if you look at the conditions and our other building blocks, you'll quickly notice that it's not available anywhere else unless you're coding. So basically, I would encourage you to read a little bit more about our building blocks, but basically selectors, conditions, actions, and triggers, they operate on much different principles than the current software. And everything you do visually. You don't do anything with code, but you got the flexibility of code.
Cool. Yeah, if you have other questions, we are ready to answer them. I'm just looking down my phone, so sorry to look away from the screen. Okay. Implementation phase, your export code. What else? Is there any rulers of grids in current version or grids?
Yep, so we answered those guys.
Oh yeah, before.
Text.
Sorry. Yes, I can see that.
For interactive text fields and video players, not yet. So the first thing that we're working on is getting better selectors, better conditions, better user testing into this. And then once we do that, we will probably add something like dynamic text fields next, and we'll probably do this around the same time that we add things like variables. So the way that you could use that, for example, in an e-commerce site is you could have text fields for different prices, which say add up to a certain number as a variable in your shopping cart. And you'll be able to set all of that up without actually touching any code.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If you have any other questions, guys, you can ask them. Guys and gals, you can ask them us right now. And yeah, I believe we can have one more thing. So if you want to test phase now, if you want to help us develop it and give us some feedback how it's working for you, you can go to our Slack channel to phase.com/community. And because we kinda already onboarded you, I will just provide you with an URL where you can leave your email address and let us know if you are interested in testing phase. And we are also open to answer all of your questions after that.
Do you want to answer?
Yeah, we have more questions.
Okay, keep one.
Let's do principle first, and then framer afterwards. Do you want to start with principle?
Principle is quite easy. To create any kind of interaction in principle, you have to create multiple screens, and you're creating a transition from screen 1 to screen 2, but the screen 2 is actually a duplicate version of screen 1. There is no such thing like states. You just duplicate stuff and basically create transitions on the copies of the screen, and it's quite painful if you want to create something large, something huge. So that's the main difference between principle and between Framer X. First difference is we don't use code at all to create any kind of interactive components. But also we didn't test much of the Framer X right now, and that's the main difference that we can spot so far.
Yeah. So again, we haven't used Framer X, so we're not sure. But to summarize, principle works just fine if you're doing simple things. If you need to make something large, if you need 50 different pages in your interactive prototype and you need them all to work dynamically, you can't do that with screen duplication software. This model of building blocks of conditions and selectors and putting them together in actions and element states and breaking it down to these very, very basic pieces. When you do that, you can build up to something with any level of complexity that you want without duplicating screens. You have one screen for every screen in your app, the same way that you would do in code, just 10x, 20x faster than if you were doing it in code.
Okay, so there's another question about managing data. So there's a question that says if Face will be, if we're going to operate on real data and if we'll be able to use databases. Yes, you will. We really care about prototyping on real data. It doesn't come now. First of all, we'll be building probably our editor stuff and dynamic components where you can actually use the data from the APIs or databases or just from JSON's file. But yeah, real data is available in Face.
Or will be available.
Yeah.
Not the version we have right now, but it will be available later this year or next year.
Cool. A lot of great questions, and I think that's it for now. What do you guys think?
Could you, or I'll do it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you guys want to go here? Slack. Yeah.
And yeah, channel beta testing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can use Google Form, and I will give you an access. Yeah, and that's us. All languages. Yeah, I'm learning how to speak German too, but I'm not speaking German for now. Yeah. Cool. Thank you guys for joining. It was great to have you here. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach us anytime. And yeah, and sign up for Face Beta. We're happy to have you on board for tests. Cool.
All right. So thanks a lot.
See you guys.
Yeah.
See you.
See ya.
Send us an email.
Yeah. Bye. Okay.